Nice.
Hello and welcome back, everybody. We finally got a chance to take this out to the range last Friday, and boy, it really does kick. 4570 teaches you above all else that you should in fact have a shoulder pad, which is why going forward, I'm going to make this a nice little addition to the rifle. But for now, let's go ahead and review what it is that we learned last week about, well, just how much 4570 actually does shake the rifle, your mounting points, and every other darn thing on it. Stay tuned and we'll go ahead and take a look at what's been happening at the range. So today, we're going to go ahead and do a review of the various lessons learned at the range. I'm going to talk you through here on the different sort of, let's be honest, sometimes painful experiences I had, and we're going to cut to clips from the range where we actually learn those things in the moment. Starting here with the mounting points.
No, I know the problem. We broke the screw.
Tiny bit of powder.
Yeah, the shim hasn't held it up. The mount's come loose.
This 1885 high wall came from the factory with two dovetails. One down there towards the muzzle, which we're only going to be using for the 6-power long scope. Doesn't really factor into this right now. Another dovetail back here, and strangely enough, two screw holes drilled to different depths back here atop the receiver. Because of the height differential and the taper that it induces, I went ahead and put a special riser mount here that's not really built for this particular rifle, but what the hey, it got me close enough, right? Back here, I had to grind the hardened steel screws down on a file, and I really started getting tired of that. My fingers were a little fat, I was getting close down to the quick, and I started clipping my fingernails, so I figured I was close enough. I'll go ahead and cut an old soda can and use it for shims. Don't do that. Don't be me. I learned a very important lesson. 4570 has enough kick that it's going to shake, rattle, and roll those screws right back out of the mounts, especially if there's a weak point induced here by shimming.
Oh, that's too big.
Above all else, make sure that your scope is mounted properly. Let my lesson be a lesson to you, if nothing else. Fortunately, we found the easiest solution to that problem was to come across two engineers at the range who happened to carry some blue Loctite and a bunch of tools with them.
Junk saved our life just now.
You want to see all the gunsmithing tools that are required to assemble one of these?
The first 12 rounds that I fired when we were discovering the whole loosening problem before it really became an issue, we managed to get the scope fairly centered and grouping pretty okay. We couldn't figure out where the problem was coming from at first, but it still held within about a foot and a half wide on the target. Once we removed the scope, fixed everything up, Loctited those screws in and remounted it, it actually stayed almost in the same grouping.
Okay. All right, you are again grouping on the left side.
Then, using the next 8 shots, we went ahead and really got it dialed into the 0, and then it really started to shine. After that, went ahead and took 3 more shots. As you can see here, that's 3 bullets. I figured that was close enough, following that, to go ahead and hit some steel. My goodness, after that many rounds, after about 25 shots, that shoulder pad would have been pretty handy.
Yeah, I think the Mikes and Tommies are also own that truck that's right next to, in between them. So, this business.
Once you start getting a bruise in your shoulder and you start trying to aim accurately, you might start pulling your shots because of, well, you're going to flinch when you pull.
That's a little high.
I pulled that one.
Did you? Did you see it?
Yeah, I tilted back right as I fired.
One of the other things that we discovered was that due to the difference in height between the mounting point down here and the much higher strange mounting point back here, the taper that was present in the scope forced me to screw this turret almost all the way down to the bottom. And it was just enough to get me to 100 yards.
I got it about the 12 o'clock, huh?
Yep.
Yep, you're at 12 o'clock on the bolt. So you need to come down 3 or 4 minutes, thereabouts. You should be pretty close to the bottom of travel with that.
Pretty much, yeah. It's as close as it's going to zero, almost.
Yeah.
If I had to zero any closer, I think I would recommend going ahead and mounting it properly on the barrel and level, but for my purposes, it actually worked out pretty okay.
Very good. That's,
Where am I at?
10 o'clock, just outside the X.
Another thing that we came across in zeroing the scope, these index lines are not true quarter MOA or half MOA or really any other sort of indication. They're going to depend largely on your mounting distance. Our mounts are built to be spread 7.25 inches apart center to center. You can check that by measuring the distance between the center of these thumb nuts. This is mounted at more like 5.5, 6 inches. We actually didn't really measure it. But there is a technique that you can use in order to see how much these adjustments are actually worth, what their value is in MOA. We fired a grouping of 3 shots, these guys down here. Went ahead and moved it, just a random amount of index lines. I went ahead and tried a few MOA, fired another grouping. Then we measured the average distance and went ahead and just did a bit of math, and that told us how much each of these were moving.
That correction you made was about half of what you needed to make windage-wise. Maybe a little more. So you said you came over 5 marks?
Yeah.
So I would come over another 3.
It was a little less than a third, a little more than a quarter, but for our purposes, getting zeroed in at 100 worked perfectly fine. When we took it out to 200, I went ahead and I didn't actually adjust any of these. I just used holdovers at that point. In the future, when I try to get this zeroed in at 100 again after putting in better screws and taking out the shims, I'm going to go ahead and do the actual math to figure out what the adjustment values are for this particular distance. That way I can dial it to 200. I have enough upward movement on the elevation that I can get it to 200, 300, even farther likely, but not closer than 100 with the way that it's set up now.
So right now we are testing the 1885 Hi-Wall birdie rifle, and I have missed every shot so far. We're still getting it zeroed in at 100, so let's see how much more we got to go to get this thing on paper.
The other important lesson to take home is that this, like many other externally adjusting scopes, is going to slide a little bit every time that you fire. With this 45-70, it's definitely going to slide a lot more than a 22, but it's always going to move a little bit. Our particular setup had it moving about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch with every shot. And that meant that for every shot that I actually wanted to place properly with the right cheek weld, the right eye relief, and everything else, I had to make sure and pull it back prior to every shot. I know that it may sound a little tedious, but for these single shot rifles, it really pays to take the time before or just after every shot to make sure that everything is set up and working just beautifully.
I'll pull the scope back.
I rushed through the first 12 shots and I didn't always remember to pull it back, which might have accounted for some of my terrible grouping in addition to the mounts. The next 8 shots I slowed down a little bit, made sure to pull it back for every shot, and it really helped with zeroing it in and making sure that my head was positioned right. For the next 3, once we really started getting it dialed in and set on paper, these groupings relied pretty much on the fact that these were not moving. With everything loctited down properly, with everything tightened up, and with the scope returning to the same battery position each time, it becomes very repeatable, especially on this Hi-Wall 1885. This rifle, it shoots a lot better than I ever could, but I'm going to try and catch up to it someday. Well, I learned a couple of very important lessons that day, and lessons I'm going to take forward to the range in this coming week. Most important being, I really need to get this mounted properly soon. I need to get the right length of screws, I need to take these shims out, and I got to get it level on the barrel. As it stands, I can still use it for 100 yards and out without any real difficulty. And using holdovers, I was able to get pings at 200 and 300 yards. But in order to try and make these divisions true quarter MOA and make it a little more repeatable, I'd like to get this moved and mounted to actually sit 7.25 inches between the mounts. For now, I can use this sort of fudging trick where I rough the math out and get it zeroed at 100, but that's not going to be tenable if I want to dial this thing out and actually get the center of the optic on the center of the target. Another important lesson, probably the most important of all, finish the shoulder pad before I take this thing back out. I don't want to get that bruise again. It took about 20 shots before it started getting about the size of a silver dollar, and the next 10 were a little less fun. Still though, this is possibly the most enjoyable rifle I have ever fired. There's something beautiful about sending 405 grains of lead down and watching that thing sail through the air.
Good to go. Send it.
Sending it.
Nice. Smoked it.
That felt good.
So I'm going to go ahead and leave you here now with a couple of fun clips that we had that day that didn't quite make it into the rest of the instructional video. And we're looking forward to shooting this again in just a few days and making sure that everything holds true and steady and we can take it out past 300 yards. But for now, with my rough ballistics, I just couldn't manage it that time. Anyway, hope you all take it easy, have a nice week, and make sure you enjoy what you're doing.
There you go.
Nice. Heard something. I'll shoot one more.
It's kind of a light sounding 4570.
Yeah, I was really surprised. Like
Surprise, yeah.
It's actually not terrifying.
went off the right edge. Okay.
Steel, baby. Right between them.
Yeah, watch your eye relief on that sucker when you fire it, because it could kick back on you.
I believe it.
And it'll make a mark. When they make big holes like that, it's much better.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Easier
very
to
nice.
spot. Yeah, it's not like looking for 22 holes.
Oh, also, make sure you pull the scope
you're
back.
way high. Whatever
Way
you
high,
did,
huh?
you-
That up. You are right here right now.
Here?
Yeah, just outside it.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's in there now. Now it's not moving. Yeah, that mount's on solid.
Okay.
All right,
So-
give it a whirl.
And
What could possibly go?
Very nice. You're in a 10 ring.
Woo!
Fire another one. See how close it gets without any sight changes, other than pulling the scope tube back.
Yeah, that's okay. But
Okay.
give me one click right on your windage. And then let's put another target up.
I like the cajoling. I'm going for the circle on the right.
There you go, man. The way you had that zeroed, it'll connect. Them's the rules.
We're taking it out to 200. Them's the rules.
Yeah, off you go. I'll join.
All right. I was holding a full target above and about a half a target to the right. Looks like it might be a little bigger than 18-inch of a target, so I'm going to go ahead and go 1/4 of the target up, half a target right. Unless the wind dies down again.
I'll pull the scope back.